It's the key to everything that matters. The best things in my life have come from stillness. The best work in my life has come from stillness. The question is, the idea in the book, and I do hope you check it out, is how can you find it? What would you be capable of doing if you had that stillness?
I've been reading a book lately. It's called Stillness is Key. It's by an author named Ryan Holiday. Mm-hmm. And in it, I'm still in the middle of it, so I haven't finished it. But in it, he's going over a lot of the benefits of having a sober and quiet mind. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, the name of the book is called Stillness is Key. One thing that stood out to me in particular was he was talking about the age that we live in, where we're basically inundated with information and notifications and news and gossip and hot takes in sports and all of these things. And he quoted I can't remember where the quote came from, but he said, "A wealth of information can lead to poverty of attention." It's hard to pay attention to any one thing if I'm being constantly flooded with information that may or may not even be valuable to me. So he was pointing out Napoleon. He said that one of the things that Napoleon did was that he asked his advisors to not give him his mail and his messages for 3 days, right? And the purpose of this was because important items are going to still be important in 3 days. Frivolous things will have shown their insignificance over the course of that time period. Some of those things will have worked themselves out. Some of those things, the person that sent the message would be like, well, he didn't get back to me, so let me just figure, you know what I mean? So he put up those safeguards so that he could focus on the things that would help him to conquer whatever he was doing at the time. And I felt like that was, it struck a chord with me because of the fact that we're always, social media has just taken over, whether it's, the classical social medias like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, or even things like YouTube and LinkedIn. A lot of people are just always on the device, on their screens, whatever, filling themselves up with information. They call it doom scrolling now. I'm not sure if y'all familiar with that term. Filling themselves up with information that ultimately takes their attention away from what could be beneficial to them and whatever growth pattern they're trying to, establish.
Yeah. I agree with that, man. I was actually talking to my wife about that the other day, man, because I have to leave the TV off, put my phone face down to the laptop, and just do other things, man, like around the house or something, because too much information. It just, like you said, you can't really focus on one thing. You can't really even have a good conversation about any one thing because it's just a constant 24/7 feed.
Yep.
We were talking about how, my wife and I were talking about how, remember when we were young, like about 11 o'clock or midnight, TV would end. And then Canada would
Star Spangled Banner.
And then Canada would be like, "Oh, Canada," go fuss. And I'm like, I actually missed that. Because
that's a good point.
then you were able to like go to bed. Like that was kind of a sign of, okay, the day is ended. And the information is over, because the news would go off. You had a couple of channels that might stay on, but you get that fuzz. Now we have literally 25/8, 365, 366 information nonstop, and it just keeps growing and growing. And nobody's even talking to each other anymore. Nobody even knows each other. Like families don't even get together like they used to on Sundays for dinner or anything, because everybody's like, "Hey, let's just do a Zoom." It's like, no.
We live 5 minutes from each other.
Right. It's like,
it's so true.
It's like, no, man. So that's a powerful thought, and that's a discussion that we need to expound upon, because we're living in an age, man, where people don't even know how to. And we've discussed this before, like look each other in the eyes. Literally talk.
Right.
That's true.
Because I've been in situations with like younger people, and dude, it's so weird and awkward because they're like, "Oh yeah."
Right.
They avoid it.
They can't even like I'll shaking hands and stuff is awkward and weird now for some generations. And it's like we really have to, like our generation and older, we have to like really reinforce Like, this is how you shake a hand.
Yeah.
This is how you talk to people. Look each other eye in the eye.
It's crazy that we have to address such basic things over again because the way that the world is trending, we're losing that. You know what I mean?
It's dying fast.
Yeah. It's just the simple things like interpersonal communication, like you said, shaking hands, being able to conduct an interview, meeting somebody for the first time, dating, all of these things. Yeah. The simple nuances of being able to communicate with another person in the flesh and not over, Twitter fingers is a lost art. And it's crazy to me. That's a wild thing, right?
Yeah. Life I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Life is much more than 150 characters.
For sure. He was saying that one of the things he said in the book, another thing that struck me was he was saying that we've got to a point where we have become afraid of silence. We become afraid. Like, there's no time. If you could think about your day. Yeah. There's no time, really, in most people's days. Maybe, those of us sitting here, maybe we take some time and are intentional with sitting in silence or meditation or prayer or whatever for a while. But for the vast majority of human beings on the planet right now, there is no moment where there is silence. Even when we fall asleep, we leave the TV on or Netflix is playing episode after episode. We get up first thing in the morning, I'm scrolling my phone. That's noise in my mind. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so he was saying that people have gotten to a point where we don't even know what to do if there's any silence. We're getting anxious and, twiddling our feet. What's going on? You know what I mean? Yeah. If there's a moment of silence and serenity, when in reality, that's the moment where we're able to grow and be our best. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're able to hear from our conscience. We're able to hear from God. We're able to hear from or we're able to meditate over the things that have happened during the day or, our goals, what we want to do with our lives and what's going on with our kids and our spouse and all. Yeah. All of that kind of stuff doesn't happen as well as it can happen unless you have a silent or quiet mind.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's very big. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you know what comes to my mind as you were talking? Willful ignorance.
Yeah, okay? I love it. Yeah.
On my part, okay? Because I've been part of conversations where people say, you read this person or you seen this? I don't know. I choose not to, okay? Yeah. But when I say that, I'm not passing judgment on those who keep up.
Sure,
okay?
Right.
So on my news feed, on my, phone or on my laptop, I scroll. So I just look at the bylines and I read it, and if it's of an interest, I might read a little bit more. Right. But I don't delve into it. Right. Okay. Yeah. So when you brought up that topic, I was thinking how beneficial I've learned, and maybe part of it is because I have a number of years also. But I learned that just because I don't have the details about what's going on doesn't mean I can't be conversant if the subject comes up.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm willfully ignorant, but I know that I'm not ignorant overall, right? So someone can bring up something, I don't know anything about who this person is, but then just give me a couple of minutes to hear, and then all of a sudden, I'm conversant now, and I can talk about it. And I know you're the same way because I watch these, and I know if you sit here and you just sit and you don't say a word.
I love it.
Quiet storm. Call him out.
Yeah.
Call him out.
You got it, man.
Quiet storm.
Quiet storm.
Because it's a benefit to not have a whole lot of junk in you, especially stuff that you don't really need.
So true.
And every now and then, sometimes folks laugh at me and say, "You don't know who this person is?" I said, "No." What? You never? No.
I got better things to think about.
But you don't know who Little Yachty is?
Right. You said what?
You don't know who Little Yachty is?
Right. But then I asked myself,
I would love to have a little yacht.
Yeah, right. And I asked myself, is my life lessened because I don't know
Interesting.
This?
Precisely.
And when I realize it isn't, I say, I'm fine.
Exactly.
And that's what I mean by willful ignorance on my part.
I like that.
Powerful.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with curating what you do give your attention to because they have monetized your attention. That's the problem. Yeah. The reason why it's constant, it's nonstop is because the more they can get you to look at stuff, the more chances you have of looking at something that's going to make you spend money, make you think differently, change your opinion about something, give you an opinion about something you have no clue what it is, giving you information about celebrities you don't care about. It's just it goes on and on and on because that's monetized now. Yeah. So the more they can get you to pay attention to stuff like that and get your mind on things that don't matter, it's a win, you know? And it's There was this my bad. There was this one. There was this one. I'm not gonna say that because that's conspiracy. I don't have anything to base that on. Mm-hmm. But we just have to be careful. We got to be vigilant about what we give our attention to and what we let draw our minds over to something else. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So
100% agree.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I talk way too much.
You talk way too much. I also, because Ethan, he had. I say this from time to time. Why do we allow what we allow? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So then, with that, I say, why do I choose to allow my mind's energy to go into this area? Mm-hmm. And then in doing so, am I aware of what I'm not choosing to avail myself of that is probably a better choice? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Say that one more time.
Okay. I ask myself, why do I allow what I allow? Okay. So if I'm going to allow my mind's energy to focus on this thing here, okay, then why do I choose that over something else? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I'm not saying I got to be serious all the time. Mm-hmm. Okay. Sure. Because, I can get home and I love me some Monty Python. I don't know if it is.
I like Monty Python.
I love Monty Python.
Sure. Okay.
But not too much, Mm-hmm. But there's a time where I allow it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then most people think I'm serious all the time because that's probably the face that I present, But they don't know behind the scenes I can get just as silly.
Yeah.
Okay. But the point I'm making is, like you had mentioned, these celebrities and these, how does that make my life any better?
Yes.
Oh man.
Once again, not passing judgment on them because they make their choices, they do it.
Sure.
Sure. But because see, sometimes peer pressure comes in also. Because if you're hanging with a crowd, and then if you don't know who this person is, then you feel lesser of a person. And so then now you have to. And then why do we allow ourselves? So it's when I choose to be careful about what I allow my mind to focus on, then I can make better choices.
I love that.
So one of the tropes in this book, he actually addresses that directly.
Okay.
And so we've spoken on the podcast before about subduing or even eliminating ego, right?
Yes.
He suggests that ego is the reason why we feel it's necessary to keep up with modern trends or sports, who's getting traded to who and all of that kind of stuff, or even the latest celebrity gossip. Because there's no real value, unless we're making a living off of it, there's no real value in me keeping up with LeBron's stats, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's fun, sure, no problem. It's fun to talk about. But the reason why some of us put a lot of extra effort and put so much energy, like you're saying, put so much energy behind it, is so that we don't feel lesser when that peer pressure, when our whole friend group is talking about it, because my ego says I'm not going to be left behind without, the whole stat sheet born in my memory. You know what I mean? And so I think it's important if we're looking towards subduing our own egos, we can also translate into, eliminating or killing the flesh, so to speak. If I'm looking to do that, then I have to be aware of what is actually adding value to my life and what I am using to kind of just keep up with the Joneses. What amount of energy and effort am I putting into something that's pure, the pure benefit of it is just so that when me and Ethan get together, we can talk about the latest, slam dunk contest, or whatever. As opposed to talking about things like this, which, again, I am not, like you said, not passing judgment. I love sports, but like you said with Monty Python, there's a time and a place, and there's a limited amount of bandwidth, mental bandwidth that I'm willing to offer and give that.
Yes.
Because there's so much other space that I have for way more important things. You know what I mean? My business, my love, my family, my spiritual life, all of these other things, that should be the bulk of my attention. And then I have a certain sliver here that I let everything else fall into. You know what I mean? So I think that ego death is a big part of allowing ourselves to be silent. Yeah.
What's his author name again?
Ryan Holiday. Yep, check it out.
So, it's funny that you mentioned this subject right here because in my mind I was just talking to James and Al about relevancy. Mm-hmm. That's one of the topics that I wanted to discuss. Okay. Like how about
this goes right with it.
It goes exactly with it because I was thinking about what you're talking about is the stillness. And was it the stillness he said?
It's called Stillness is Key. That's the name of the book.
Stillness is key. And that's important, right? Because you said that people nowadays want to fill that silence with something, right? Yes. But the silence is actually good because you can actually, that noise, all that noise is actually, we know that the distractions are in the midst of the noise, right? But then if you, I deal with music a lot, right? And I deal with frequencies, waveforms, and different things like that. So you guys know that I have a lot going on in my house with my kids with this video, right? Yeah. But there's software that you can put in there that can remove all of that, and then you can hear us clearly. And I think that that's happens a lot when we're discussing things with people. There's a lot of things going on where you can't focus on the eyes of the individual that you're communicating with. Right. That's the reason why, like, the kids nowadays, they're so... Their behavior is so erratic is because they, like you said, they have so many accessories going on, accessories that they can't really look in human eyes and really grasp the spirit of individuals, right? And so when I was thinking about that relevancy, I was thinking about, okay, what's relevant to you? Okay. Do you feel like you're relevant because of this information, right? Like you said, I need to learn the latest stats and different things like that so I can be a part of a conversation. Man, I think that's the total opposite, like, that we should start thinking, right? I think it's really understanding the prioritization, right? Prioritization is key of that information. Like you said with Napoleon, the reason why a lot of these conquerors or whatever was able to do such feats is because they knew what information was valuable and important.
Their priorities were in order.
Their priorities were in order. So I'll leave my point at that, but I think that that's great. I think it goes with the relevancy, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's good stuff.
I want to challenge us to think about how the real goal here of distraction, you know what I'm saying? Because if you can keep people inundated with meaningless information, like, cause I see stuff and I'm like, I've literally said to myself, like, when I look at my phone, I'm like, don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even, like, it's stuff that makes news right now. You would be like, why is this on the news?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? There's a war. Like, like, who cares about that? And so you mentioned something earlier about personal development and being able to focus on that. I think the goal is for you not to be able to focus on that.
Yes.
And furthermore, the bigger goal is for us not to be able to have united mindsets about anything. Because once you get people in the room,
they start united on the wrong thing.
Exactly, get united on the wrong thing. Because once you get people in a room like this, if the intentions aren't what they need to be for the greater good or the greater bad, then they're not doing their job with the distractions, you know, and keeping you focused on your phone, like G, and then I'm just messing with you.
I know. I'm trying to look at that quote I was talking about.
No, you couldn't write this joke, bro.
We've
been talking for 20 minutes.
I was trying to find what quote I was talking about.
That was wrong. He was doing good. Nah, man, but
oh yeah, I hear y'all.
I'm listening, right? I hear you.
Trying to beat this next level on this game.
Yeah, but the goal is specifically to keep us all on our phones and not talking to each other, not looking at each other, and definitely not sharing ideas that are within the confines of unity and purpose. You know, and so individuals were affected, and then as a group we're affected. Right. And that is very effective, man. Right. Because if you can keep on somebody's phone literal garbage, and I mean it is some garbage. Like, who cares about Beyonce and Ticketmaster? I do not care. You know how mad, you know how annoying that is. I don't care about Beyonce and Ticketmaster, man. Like, there's stuff going on right now, man. That's like world-ending stuff. Yeah. You know, and who cares about the Grammys? Right. You know, I don't care anything about that, man. Like, I didn't watch any of that. Devil worship, TV show. Like, they were doing stuff on there that was like cultish, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, why do I want to watch this stuff? So. As soon as you unplug, that's what I tell my wife. Like, some weekends, man, I'll be even busy like through the weekend and on the weekend. But then it's one day out of the weekend you have to unplug, man. And I mean, literally, don't do anything with electronics, because if you don't, man, you will lose it. Yes, you will. You have to unplug. If you're somebody of significance, intelligence, and you want to really free your mind and get that moment of clarity, you literally have to unplug.
Silence is key.
And I mean, taking the phone face down, laptop shut. Like my TV would be on, but I like film, documentary. I like to feed my mind with certain things, so I'm in control of that.
Yeah.
But definitely not the computer or the phone.
Yeah.
I think the phone is the worst.
Yeah.
Like when these smartphones came out, I was against them because I was like, I want a phone with buttons. First of all, I like buttons. But then I was just like, this is gonna be a problem, man. Because having all this information at our fingertips, we're done.
Yeah.
And then everything else they want to implement with technology,
Right.
we're slaves to it. We literally are, man. Like whether you want to be or not.
Yeah.
Because think about it.
True, man.
If you didn't want a smartphone, you got one now. Even if you didn't want one.
Right.
I gotta admit,
His dad is a classic example of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He held on a long time.
2 or 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Nice.
He
He held on long as he could.
He had his flip phone until about 3 years
He held on long as he
And it was
could.
ugly. I used to laugh at him every time I saw him.
I love it.
hey, I'm with you. I had a flip phone about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's
Nice.
I resisted, but
That's crazy.
I got to admit something, and I don't mind. I got an iPad, right? And of course, we all go onto YouTube, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that on the bottom, and I literally just found this out like 2 days ago.
Okay.
I could push on the button, and there's something called Shorts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You all know. I didn't know.
Yep.
I'm serious.
Right.
As you say, as God is my witness,
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And so I pushed the button just to see what it was. And now I wish I didn't push the button.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
serious.
You. Yeah.
So-
Thank you.
Because as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, my God, this is addictive.
Yes.
If you're not careful,
Yep.
this
It is,
because
it
you
is,
just
man.
keep flipping,
Yep.
keep flipping. What's the next one? What's the next one?
Oh,
I say, now I see the problem.
Yes.
Exactly.
And,
Thank
so,
you.
and that when I go back saying ignorance is bliss or willfully ignorant, I wish I had never pushed that button.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying I can't control it,
Right.
but I at least know it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've actually gone and sort of peeked just to see, okay, what do okay, they got me already.
man,
They got
get
me
you,
already.
man. I'm telling you.
It's hard.
So YouTube Shorts is a variation on the TikTok method of presenting social media.
Okay.
Yep. So TikTok was, I believe, the first to really do it that way, where it's just a constant, never-ending feed of very short videos. But that's a psychological, that's science behind that.
Definitely.
It's based on the idea that a human's memory or attention span is very, very limited, especially in these days. And so what they do is, instead of presenting something that's an hour long, like a movie or a documentary, they present something that even if it's something that's beneficial to you. I work in construction, and so everything on my phone when I'm scrolling shorts or TikTok is all construction after construction, which is valuable to me because I'm learning other people's techniques, their perspectives, their ways of doing things. But at the same time, I can sit there if I'm, God forbid, don't let me be on the toilet. I'll be here. I'll be here until my legs fall asleep. Right. I stand up like, oh. But it's because it doesn't. You don't realize how much time is going by. If you go to the movie and sit down and watch Titanic, you're aware that 3 hours has gone by. And the whole time you're like, man, this movie ain't over yet. But on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels and so on, you sitting there scrolling it because everyone is so short, your attention span gets refreshed every single time. And you're getting that dopamine spike. And so it's constant. And our minds are wired. They have literally looked through our psyche, and they realize that our minds are wired to stick with that process over and over. And unless you're, like you said, unless you come to the point where you are in control of it and you're aware of what's happening, because without the awareness and the intentional approach to it, you'll get lost in it.
Right.
No matter what the content is, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, you'll get lost in it because that's the way we're wired. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that you brought that up, because we have to be intentional with everything that we consume. All of our entertainment, we have to be intentional in the things that we consume, or we will lose whatever stillness we have left. You know what I mean?
What's the documentary Social Dilemma?
Yes.
On Netflix.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Man.
Oh,
I have to
man.
watch
That was a hard one to watch.
Science behind it.
Yeah.
Because we're all victims of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there like, dude, these rascals.
I love it. Yep.
And they got me too.
For sure.
Yeah, it's
Lures you
rough.
in, man.
Yep.
You sit up there late for work.
Right.
Right.
Oh man.
Right.
Countless times I've been late for work.
Just for scrolling. Just for
Scrolling. Yeah.
And that's why I was looking for that quote, right? Because the quote, and I'll go on and say it, because whether whether it proves to be true or not, I think the evidence speaks for itself for where we are today, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to say, and the reason I don't like kind of going back and quoting stuff like this without a reference is, I think somebody said it was like a Rockefeller that said this was like automatically, you don't know, people trying to push like some kind of Illuminati or whatever, but it was one of the guys who was like back in the 50s or 60s, was basically asking somebody, do you know, he was like one of the financiers for like the women's lib movement. Mm-hmm. And he was asking a friend of his off the record, nothing he meant like for it to be public, but something like, do you know why we funded the women's lib movement? And this is where, you know, I kind of talk a lot about, we got to be careful for people that claim that they have our best interests in mind where they're doing something, and to try to find out what their real motivations and their real intent is. Because he was saying something like, okay, you know, I'm funding this movement, but it's not for the reasons that everybody thinks it is. Right. And he was saying like basically the reason why they were putting as much funding and momentum behind like the women's lib movement and giving the women the right to vote, work, and all the other kind of stuff is because he said it's basically it's two major things I think he was saying at the time. For one, for every woman that's coming into the workforce, we're getting their tax money. So it's a tax boom for the government. Right. Then he was saying the other thing is when we get them working and out of the house, they have to put their children into our school systems. So you're simultaneously getting a financial benefit from increasing the workforce size in the country. But then he said we're able to take the kids out of that household during those critical years where the mother might be shaping their mentality and their mindset and start to indoctrinate them and condition them early. Wow. And then basically it gives us more time with us having their kids and us being able to kind of mold their mindset to make sure that they kind of follow in the mold that we want them to follow in. Man. So again, conspiracy theory kind of sounding stuff, but you see it happening. It's like, true, you know what I mean? Exactly. It's true regardless. Whether or not the quote was actually said, that's what we see happening. You know what I mean? So
I think it was Carnegie. It was Carnegie.
Yeah, thank you. I knew it was one of those big names like a Rockefeller or something like that. I think it was
both of them. It was Rockefeller and
Got you. Was the two of them that was talking and one of them spoke about it or something like that? So okay, so I'm glad somebody else heard it. But
so the goal is to separate the mother and the baby.
Get the child out the household as early as possible to start that indoctrination process.
Man, that's dark.
But it's that's that one example that I think is indicative of what happens a lot. Yeah. And why we got to be careful, not just to say, okay, this person has my best interest in mind, or they say the things I want to hear, or they seem to have a common interest, therefore I'm going to follow, listen to, contribute, whatever to what they're doing. You got to really stop and pay attention to what's this person really getting out of it. What are their real motivations? Yeah. And do you see them really putting their value and their time into what they're telling you to do? Because if they don't, then you're a pawn.
You got me thinking about when you said that, is how do you combat that? How are you aware that your silence is being taken? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you know where someone has other intentions for you? You know what I mean?
It's time, man. It's time. It's asking the right questions. It's really trying to figure out what that person is into. Like, are they giving lip service to what they think I want to hear? Yeah. What are they spending their time doing? What are they really putting their money behind? You know what I mean? Yeah. Where do they have ties into something? Where do they benefit from it? And a lot of it is just, like I said, just asking the questions. Is really trying to get to know somebody like that. You know what I mean? Because your time is valuable. You know what I mean? And it's valuable to you, and it's valuable to other people that can manage to get a hold of it from you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's very difficult, man.
I think it's imperative to be self-aware of what your interests and what your values are.
Yes.
Like, once you keep that at the forefront of your mind, that will be the lens that you look through.
Right.
So when other people say certain things that just don't line up with that, then you can say, yeah, I'm not going to vote for you.
Right.
You know, that's pretty much where it has to be. Because everything is a distraction, man, literally.
Yeah, but what's so hard is this is the key, because a lot of people look at the riches first.
Right.
They don't look at the words coming out their mouth. Right. They look at monetary things first.
Right.
And then that's the lure to get them to be distracted.
Yes.
I think that is the distraction to hear the words.
Right.
Yeah.
Because just like music, if you think about music, what do you hear first? The lyrics of the beat. You know, it's the beat first, right? And then you just like,
you get drawn in with that first, and then you're not even paying attention to the words that you letting come into your mind.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's the same type of process, so to speak, for a salesman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Get your defenses down.
Yeah.
Get your defenses down. And that's when you start feeling disarmed and you realize, okay, that wall is coming down, they know how to tap into that, how to tune in, you know what I mean, when that's going on, and how to take advantage of it, you know?
And it's imperative that we train our minds for how fast information is coming at us. It's imperative that we train our minds to constantly reevaluate, constantly recalibrate.
Right.
Because I'm at the point now where I'm like, what is important to me? What's real? That's all I'm focused on.
Right.
I mean, of course, sometimes you look at stuff on like definitely in the bathroom. That's definitely a weak spot. And when you're on the can, it's like, dude, right. I mean, this is ridiculous. Right. I'm sitting here, you know, so I can't walk, you know. But yeah, definitely, that's probably where you got to do the most reevaluation is when you go into the restroom and say, how much is what I do I want to consume? You know, because we're getting to a point now, man, where the stuff is not even relevant to anything that lines up with our belief systems, what we value, any of it. I mean, I'm looking at stuff and I'm like, I just wish this would go away. I wish I could block this and it never be in my feed again because it's that bad and that meaningless.
If you did, something else will replace it by tomorrow.
Yeah, another head will pop up. Exactly.
Yeah, but but the thing really comes down to control.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It really does because when you can do that, like you had the music going, right? I've actually challenged I shouldn't say challenge, that's probably not the word. When you hear music going and it has a beat, why do you notice whether you're tapping your foot or you're...
Yeah, right.
Because guess what? You don't have to. So then when you make the connection, I hear music.
Yeah.
But because I hear music, does that mean I have to start moving? Okay? Okay? It's a conscious choice. Okay?
Interesting.
Once again, nothing wrong with moving to the music. I'm not saying that at all. But subconsciously, we do things. And you don't even recognize that you're... And then only after you're down the road a little bit do you realize that this subconscious thing has affected me. Now think about that with the things we've been talking about with, you know, the news feeds and the other thing. They're doing the same thing. They have a particular purpose in mind, and if we're not aware of it, we go down that path. And at some point we may recognize it, but a lot of people don't recognize it, and it becomes norm to them. And once it becomes normalized to you, you gotta tell me what you're thinking. I see you're going. I see you're thinking.
You said a point that I'm probably gonna write down somewhere. You said only until we're down the road a ways do we look back and realize that subconscious thing has affected me. That's a heavy statement to me, man. That just hit me.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the even what you're saying about the indoctrination and all the there are so many things that are vying for our attention and our mental space. If we are not intentional and aware, self-aware about what we consume and what things are happening in here as we go about our lives, we can get down the road a ways and realize that something that hit me subconsciously a month ago, a year ago, 20 years ago has affected me and it has shifted my path to lead to where I am now.
The shoes you buy, the clothes you wear, the places you go. After a while you realize it's because I've seen it in newsprint or you know, whatever, or the people I hang out with, this is what they like to do. And then you realize after a while, it's not that I like it, but the group that I'm with.
Yes.
And so then now I'm conforming to the group, and then this is who we are, this is what we do.
Yes. Which is why we come back to it almost every week. Independent thought is one of the most critical things a human being can do. Is make sure that I think for myself as an individual. Of course, there are cultural things, societal things, religious things, spiritual things, all these things that kind of unite us. But if I am not standing as my own man with my own mindset and on my own 2 feet, then I'm doomed to fall into exactly what you just said. And those things are not necessarily detrimental. Buying Jordans because everybody likes Jordans, that's not detrimental. But what about when those things turn into like racism? Or those things turned into other forms of hatred or bad parenting or, you know, all of these kind of stuff, being toxic within our relationships and friendships. Those are societal things. And if we're willing to drop our guards so much that we'll buy a pair of shoes, who's to say that we're not willing to drop our guards to the point where we're willing to partake in these other damaging things? You know what I mean?
And on the surface, we may even realize I shouldn't do it, but everybody else does it.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
And then that's the doom of a lot of people. Everyone else does it, so then therefore I allow the thing that I recognize that I probably shouldn't allow. You know? And not, when I say shouldn't, not because society tells me not, but because I recognize I shouldn't do that. Okay? But yet I allow it because I'm part of the group and other people, so then it's okay.
And my ego won't allow me to stand by myself. In the face of, even if people aren't clowning you because you're different or because you're standing alone, just the fact that they're there. Y'all are my boys. You know what I'm saying? If everybody comes in here every week and wears Adidas shell toes, and I'm in here with my work boots on, and it happens week after week, and nobody says anything, I may start to feel like, well, maybe I should. maybe I didn't get the memo. Right. You know what I mean? And so that's just the way we're societal creatures. We are creatures that move in packs from our earliest history all the way up until now, and so that's our nature. But
no, go ahead.
No, but also, like I said, it's important for us to stand on our own 2 feet, because without people who stand on their own 2 feet, without people who are willing to stand on their own 2 feet, humankind can never evolve or advance. Every major invention came from some guy that was sitting by himself in a room, like. You know what I mean? That's the way that we can progress as individuals and as a race. You know what I mean?
Right. And you can be an individual without being anti-social.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're all examples of it. Sure. Yep.
Because I was thinking about, like, when you guys were talking about that, man, it's very important because it goes back to relevancy again. Because I was just thinking about the survival, right? Is it a sense of, is it obsolescence? Is that it? Not being obsolete.
Absolutely.
And I think that with that, is it a fear of being not only missing out, the FOMO, right? It's not, it's the fear of missing out, but it's relevancy and not being obsolete. So not caring that you come into a room and you have work boots on versus shells. You know, how do you program that difference doesn't mean nothing? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you program that? Because like you said, it's so easy to get drawn or get absorbed into a behavior, and that's behavioral. You know what I'm saying? After a while, that becomes a behavioral, right?
Yeah, because who determines what's relevant?
Yeah,
That's a good point.
Yeah, good point.
That's a good point. Yeah.
These days, propaganda, the powers that be determine what's relevant.
That's interesting because if you go back to Hitler's Germany, man, they demanded. And they put forth what was relevant. You know what I'm saying? And if you didn't comply, guess what happened to you? Wow, man.
But that's a very good point. But what's even more dark and sinister is that they were so on point with the propaganda that it didn't take force for a lot of people. A lot of people were genuinely convinced that the Third Reich will reign for 1,000 years, or that the white people are just this superior, vast race. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Some people were convinced because of the things that were being said, whether they believed it before or not. Right. The propaganda machine was working at full speed with maximum efficiency, and it convinced a great population of the world that one race was superior to another when it was absolutely not the case.
He's gonna look back at this, folks, and want it out.
Right. We're gonna cut that because I was getting ready to be controversial. But
that's true when you're talking about that. So that goes back to a couple of episodes ago about the manipulation or whatnot, right? That's a strong, like you said, the control mechanism for that, right? Who wins? You know what I'm saying? Somebody is winning. And what did you say earlier about? I forgot how you put it.
Nice. Feet, don't fail me. Don't fail me now.
No, you were saying about being careful about what people give you, right? You know what I'm saying? That was really so. Wow, I don't have a thought all the way.
My guard automatically goes up if I'm hearing somebody trying to tell me information about something I care about or that I know is going to maybe affect my actions or that's important to me. I could look at fluff entertainment stuff all day because I know it doesn't matter, and in 5 seconds I'm gonna forget it and it's gonna be out of my head. As soon as I get to like scrolling through the feed, something that I know is gonna be relevant, it's like I automatically kind of focus in, like, okay, now you got to go into discernment mode. You know what I mean? Right. Am I really willing to listen to what this person says and really start? That's when I really start scrutinizing. If it's something that's important to me, now I'm paying attention to see whether there's something I'm going to keep or scrap. And I'm one of those kind of people where you hear somebody say, you know, God told me, that doesn't mean anything to me. Let me hear what you got to say, right? Let me hear what you got to say, and then I'll make my decision on whether I agree with you or not. You know what I mean? Don't think that because a lot of people do, like that's their ticket in the door to automatically demand attention and obedience.
Absolutely.
God told me, therefore you got to listen.
I can't tell you how
Let me
many
hear what you got to
times.
say first.
Are you going to argue with God?
I have
You heard that?
Right.
I have I can't tell you how many times I've heard that as an intro, as a preface to something.
Because I mean, what can you say after that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
really?
Right.
But and then
God told me you're my husband.
right.
I was just about to say that. I've been told that. I was like, but God didn't tell me though.
Right.
Like let God and I talk about it too.
right.
Just tell you and not me.
Right. My ears are open. He ain't saying nothing to me.
Right.
That's the worst one, man.
That's what comes
the
back
worst
to
one.
that stillness. Because when you first mentioned that book, there's a book called Stillness Speaks.
Okay.
Right? And that book is kind of talking about how you got to shut up in order for God to be talking to you.
Absolutely.
So if you are doing so much talking, so much dictating, so much, you know, because we're trained to fill our mind when we're praying. And this is one of the biggest revelations to me and some of the things I kind of look at. When we're praying, we are trained to fill your mouth with, fill your mind with constant chatter.
Yes.
Quote off all the scriptures you can, going down a list of everybody you're praying for, all the things you want, and it's just nonstop. And if prayer is supposed to be a time for me and God to talk, when am I going to shut my mouth to give him time to say something?
Yeah.
So that Stillness Speaks is another book that's like that. That if I'm filling my mind and my time with so much of me saying and dictating and quoting and repeating and whatever, when do you have time to hear from God speaking to you from within for you to really set your path on what you need to do? If I'm not shutting up, when am I hearing from God? God told me this. When were you quiet long enough to hear him say it? You know what I mean?
We treat prayer like a request line.
Yes.
Like as if there is no
A genie in a bottle.
as if there is no dialogue.
Right.
It's all just me saying
But you're praying for what you want to hear. And so God in your head is the voice that you want to hear.
Right.
And whatever it is you're creating.
Right.
Like you said, with all that chatter. That's all it is. A lot of time. I can't say that for everybody.
Not all the time, but I mean, it's just that's what we got to be vigilant of. Heard you about
look at you.
I heard the gears turning.
Let's get it going. I mean,
No, you're just touching on. I mean, the video that I just did. You know, and we're working on. He's editing it for me. Basic question: do we really know God? You know, and I was talking about how most of the time our first impression of God is what someone else has told us.
Absolutely.
That's real.
And of course, and we know the scripture says train up a child. Okay, so I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But do you get to the point where you get to understand this concept, this thing called God for yourself? Or do you just continue with what someone else's understanding was?
Brother.
And then you just continue. And then you accept it as
Where were you 2 years ago?
And you move
Man, this is real.
It's real.
I tell people, I question God.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say not from the standpoint of I'm right and you prove to me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just the other way. If you said this, prove it. Mm-hmm. Show it to me. Mm-hmm. Because if you expect, and once again, not questioning, well, I'm sorry, since you expect full faith and confidence from me to you, then you've said that you've proved it to me. So if I don't see it, then it's on me. Okay? So when you ask the question, who or what God is, to me, that's a valid question. Because based on what you just said, we create our own idols.
That's right.
And we do it every day. And we think we don't because we're not making this wooden thing.
Like an effigy. Right.
But in reality, we determine in our mind what God is, what he likes, what he doesn't like. And then therefore, I march to the orders of the God that I created in my own head.
That's all it is, man. That's all it is.
And until you realize that, you're going to continue to do as either you think or as someone else has told you that God is and what he likes.
Mr. Cole, you have in 45 seconds summarized my journey for the last, since 2020 has been I gotta be careful because it's like
I get it, man. Shoot.
I have been reevaluating. That's a good way to put it. I have been reevaluating my understanding of God, His principles, His instructions, the entire shebang.
And
so
you
to
should.
speak. Yes,
you should.
And it has brought me to a place where, and this is not me saying this boastfully at all, I communicate with God on a more intimate level now than I'm 35 years old. I've been in ministry. I've helped run youth departments. I have taught. I have spoken. The whole thing, whole kit and caboodle. And never at any of those points did I have an understanding the way that I do at this moment. And that, I mean, and it's all summed up to exactly what you said, because I was living, and I mean, we here now, so let's just go here. I was living with
Be careful.
You ever see?
Take your time.
Okay, so you remember in art class when you're a kid, they give you the tracing paper. Remember the paper that's almost fully transparent? And you get this real detailed, this is the way I see it in my mind. You get this real detailed portrait of somebody, and you put the tracing paper over it. And as a kid, you trace it to the best of your ability. But when you pull this one off and you look at the original, there's such a stark difference. Yeah. I was living my entire life with this copy versus the original. Beautiful. And when I decided to switch and say, I wonder what the actual, my creator really is, I started to shift and look, and it's, like I said, the differences are so stark versus what we've been provided, the image, the instructions, the character, all of these things are such polar opposite almost to what God's nature really is. And I think that my life is more whole now than it ever has been, simply because of that realization. Man, you know what I mean?
That's beautiful.
I love it.
I feel like we're programmed to forget, though, man. Like, as soon as we're born, we're just programmed to forget and not really think about who we are, who we're going to become, right? And then now we're at a point now where technology is allowing and helping us and enabling us to forget even faster. Because if you really think about it, when you're inundated with all this information, it's meaningless information that means absolutely nothing. You literally forget. I can even say this for myself. I literally forget what I'm going to do next.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, if I put my phone down and start going to look for it, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a serious problem.
Or if you're talking on it.
Exactly.
Right, I've done that.
Hey, man, I'm trying to find my phone.
We all been there.
Yeah.
These are mental deficits being created by that very tool.
Absolutely.
And that's very problematic in how we shape our future existence.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, if we're constantly being programmed to forget who we are, forget who we know, forget how to talk to one another, then they win.
Yeah.
The powers that be win. So that's the thing that, to answer something you asked earlier, E, how do we combat certain things? It's like we have to really focus on remembering and focus on unplugging and remembering. And that stillness of the mind thing is a beautiful thing, man, because nothing beats stillness.
Yes.
When you can just sit here and say, okay, what am I doing right now? Where am I? Who do I need to call? What needs to be done that is vital to my existence right now? You know, because the phone, whatever's on there, I mean, we come up all on the time. We remember when the phone was just used to just call one another.
Yes.
You know, now we text one another. We don't even talk to one another.
Have to say a word.
We don't even hear our family member's voice to see if they're okay because we're texting them. You know, and so I've had people text me with very important things. I'm like, you texted this to me? This is urgent.
I know, man.
I didn't even see the text. You know what I'm saying?
I could have been asleep.
Right. And so we're programmed to forget all the time, and it's scary to me, man. That's where we're at right now. We're programmed to forget how to be human, forget empathy. We exercise apathy more.
Yes.
We forget empathy, and everything is just like, what ifs?
Yeah.
And I was like, huh?
What ifs?
You don't even say a word, a simple word.
Right.
You don't even say outfit anymore. You say fit, nice fit.
Right.
Like, everything's abbreviated. And so our thought processes are not abbreviated.
Wow.
Everything's a mean.
Yep.
And so everything's just like, what up?
Wow.
And then that's it. I've literally had dudes do that. Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you. I ain't seen you in 10 years. What up?
We've lost the ability. We've lost the ability.
I was like, what happened? You were the class clown. You were the most likely to succeed.
Right. And most talkative.
Most likely.
I want to say two quick things and I'm going to be quiet. First, I want to say to anybody that's listening, after the statement that I just made, that is not at all me being boastful. I am a very seriously flawed human being, and I'm working on all of my flaws. Having said that, I still stand on what I said before, but I just don't want to get into the self-righteous, holier than I hate that stuff. So I want to make sure that anytime I talk about my accomplishments, I am reminded in myself that I'm still reaching for a higher goal and a higher plane. And also for those around me, because I don't want to lose my humanity to anybody that I can potentially reach out to.
Right.
If I'm not seen as somebody that's relatable, I'm no good. I can't help you, right? The second thing is I wanted to address what you were saying. I agree. It goes back to what we were talking about a few weeks ago. You were talking about we have so much going on that we'll forget where our phone is or be wearing our glasses and forget where they are and all that kind of stuff. It goes back to that analogy that we made before about a vessel. If you're washing your dishes and you had, a little coffee in the bottom of your mug and you turn on the faucet and you let water run into it, it's going to bubble up and water's going to come out. And eventually, with enough water, that coffee is going to come to the top and spill out. So it's the same concept with this information. The important stuff is the coffee, right? the valuable things, my kids' birthdays, my PIN number, all of that kind of stuff.
Your wife's birthday.
Right. My wife's birthday. If I'm constantly filling myself, this vessel, with unnecessary stuff, and it's a constant flood all the time, eventually that stuff is going to bubble up and bubble over, and then I'll only be left with things that are frivolous, and all of the important stuff will be washed down the drain.
Away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man, that's really good. I like that.
That's true.
Wow.
So
we should.
I think we don't realize how much power we have. We don't realize what God has. If you made in the image after His likeness, right? If you understand word, then you don't really understand what God. And like you said, man, if somebody is like in our churches, I think that the churches that we know to be right, I think we have a bitter pill with the constructs that we've been raised with. Did they do the best they could? I think they did the best they could with what they do because they were given information. You know what I mean? And say, be obedient to this. This is what you do. Go get away. In some sense, you think like, okay, in some regard, I can understand why they did it because the way it was handed to them, right? Yeah. But then, like you said, 2 years ago, when, you feel like, God has really opened up your eyes on the right process of things, right? I feel the exact same way. My sentiments is the same way, because I believe salvation is real, right? And I really believe that what happened to me 3 years ago is the exact same thing. Like, I don't even think the same anymore, right? Not saying that because I see, and we have to be careful with that because I understand about being careful about what you say because people are going to say, that brother changed. Right. That has nothing to do with that.
I knew you win.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, are you looking at Ethan that, I think we talking about this early before you came, Al. We were talking about this. It's like, it's about, I forgot what I said, man. It was about,
keep talking.
Yeah. Yeah, it was about, we're becoming people, entities after someone else's ideas, kind of like what you're saying. We were saying exactly what you were talking about early, you know what I mean? Instead of really knowing our creator for ourselves to be, because that's what we were talking about. It was like, when you look at ancient script, right? When you look at ancient words, it says, be doers of the word, be not hearers of the word only, but doers, right? And I said that, isn't God a doer of His own word? Isn't He a hearer and a doer of His own word? I forgot how we laid it out because I was basically saying that is God disorganized? That's what I was saying. Is God disorganized? That's where it came up. Do you believe God is disorganized? And that's kind of what I was thinking about. No, He won't. No, He's not disorganized, right? You know what I mean? He's declared the end from the beginning, right? That's
literally what I was thinking.
What if the earth was not fully furnished before man was made in there, right? God doesn't do things like that. If God doesn't do that like that, why should we expect any less of Him providing the same thing for us? You see what I'm saying? And so that's what I'm saying, like, this construct that we find ourselves in, we basically given our power over into a virtual entity. You see what I'm saying? Governed by something.